Hi, I'm oozePOP, and you've just stumbled upon oozePOP's top 10 albums of 2023. I know that this video is late. We're already halfway done with 2024. But music is my favorite thing in the world. I cannot help but talk about it, discuss it, dissect it. And I figured I made my top 10 hardcore releases of 2023. So might as well do my top 10 just non-hardcore or general album releases of 2023. I might have a hardcore album or two on this list, but it's not going to be hardcore exclusive. Okay? I haven't quite decided yet. I don't remember. I've already got my list of albums, of 10 albums. I just haven't put them in order yet. But after this intro, that's what we're doing. So, I want to start this video off by just putting in some context, giving you guys some context. When I made my top 10 hardcore releases of 2023, it was challenging but fun. There were so many hardcore releases I had to pick from, and I had to just make up my mind and do it. I had to just be like, you know what? I'm sorry, all of these albums. I love you, but I'm gonna pick the 10 best albums I could. And it was fun because I had to listen to so much hardcore. I don't want to say leave some of it behind, but you get what I mean. As I'm thinning the herd for the top 10, I'm listening to so much other albums that are also really good. Now, when you compare that with my experience of making this list, my top 10 albums in general, this one is less challenging and less fun as a result. 2023, kind of not the best year as far as, I guess, innovation or experimentation goes. Usually I struggle more to make this list, but if I'm being honest with you, I only had 10 albums to pick from. After I sifted, so let me back up just a tiny bit. I make a playlist for every month of every year, and I put music that I listen to on that playlist. Even if I listen to it a little bit, I'll add it to the playlist. And sometimes the opposite is true too. And it's just kind of by accident. Sometimes I'll listen to something a lot. I'll have really, really built a relationship with something and just forget to add it to a playlist. Hey, I'm only human. But the point I'm trying to make is when I'm digging through January, February, March, etc., all the way to December 2023 on my Spotify playlist, it was a struggle to find 10 albums, 10 non-hardcore albums. It was a big struggle. I found more than, in those playlists there were more than 10 albums, but when I'm digging through it, the way I kind of go is I see an album and I'm like, yes, that one. Not that one. Yes, that one. You get what I'm saying? After I went from January to December, I only had 10 albums, okay? When I did that with the hardcore albums, I had what felt like 20 or 30 or more, and I had to really be like, how am I gonna do this? I gotta really, really dig here. But when I was done sifting from January to December of 2023, I only had 10 non-hardcore albums. So because of that, this list is going to be easier to make, to determine which one's number 10 and which one's number 1. That part's going to be easier. but also it's going to be not fun, not as exciting as it was for the first list. You know, for the hardcore list, that top 10, I'm repeating myself at this point, but I'll just say it one more time. That top 10 hardcore releases list is one of the funnest things I've done in my life. It's challenging but fun. Having to determine, of this big pile of goodness, pick only 10 things. Yeah, I hope I get the opportunity to do stuff like this again. This one, not as much fun. I don't really know what to make of that. I guess, like, if you're watching this and you're an artist and you're not part of the hardcore scene, do better. Do better, kings and queens and every other. Do better. Do better. So that way I'm not just listening to hardcore music, okay? I like jazz. I like rap, you know? I like pop. But where's it at? It's not here. Where's it at? It was not brought. 2023, one of the simultaneously best and worst years for music for me. Because if you're only focusing on hardcore, one of the best years for hardcore ever in my life that I can ever remember. But just music in general, well, you'll see. You'll see where this list goes. Starting at number 10, let's talk about One Wayne G by Mac DeMarco. This might be a controversial pick. I can imagine someone thinking, wow, you really wasted a spot by putting this awful Mac DeMarco album on here. So, considering this may be a controversial pick, at least we're getting it out of the way early at number 10. Now, One Wayne G by Mac DeMarco is an album that I reviewed favorably or positively compared to other people who reviewed it, but I still didn't give it the brightest review. I gave it, I think, like a 67 or something like that. I gave it something in the 60s, I believe. Maybe 70s, but for sure at least in the 60s when I reviewed it initially. But I think this album deserves to be on this list. Let me tell you why. One Wayne G is easily one of the most listenable albums I've ever heard in my life. It's very long. I think it's like 3 hours long, maybe even like 9 hours long. I think it is like 8 or 9 hours long. It's nearly like 200 or 300 songs long. It's basically a mixtape, but it's even more rough than that. It's just a bunch of recordings that only have the date they were made as the title. Some of them have the date plus kind of a subtitle to it, but 99% of the material on here is just a number. That number being the date it was created, I assume. I think it has to be the case because sometimes you have multiple songs that were created on the same date, and it makes that obvious. It'll have that number, date, whatever, plus 2 or 3, etc. You get me. I've already kind of answered this, but let's dive deep. If you're wondering, hey, if you didn't review this album very favorably, why then are you placing it on your top 10 albums of the year of 2023 if it's not that good? And it's because it is that good. It is that good. It's just that if I were to review it today, I probably would give it something in like the 70s. But the reason why I think like an album that's just kind of okay can be on this list is because, like I said, it is one of the most listenable albums I've ever heard in my life. It's just because it has so many songs, it's easy to just put it on shuffle and just vibe with whatever you get. There's like one or two kind of like ambient, noisy songs on this album, but it's mostly cute little indie tune ideas. Sometimes there's vocals, sometimes there's lyrics. Most of the time it's just instrumental. But I really like what I receive from this album. I really like what I'm hearing. It's just like adorable, it's cute, it's easy to listen to. You can listen to it in order, you can listen to it in shuffle. You're most likely gonna find something to enjoy. I realize that Mac DeMarco has a lot of haters, a lot of dedicated haters. So this album might not be for everybody, but if you don't mind just cute indie rock that isn't doing too much, just casual listening, I think you should check out One Wing G. I think it's worth a visit. One thing I'd like to say about this album is that in the short amount of time, kind of, that I've given it, it's already one of my top, I think 20 or 30 albums of all time on Last FM. That's as far as plays go, scrobbles go, how many times I've given it a listen. Now it's easy for a 300 song album to end up at the top if you just listen to it a couple times, right? Easy for that to happen. But if this kind of tells you anything, I'm not the biggest Mac DeMarco fan. I started listening to him when he released this album, Here Comes the Cowboy. I've always known who he was and casually listened to him before that, but I'm not really into that kind of like oldies sounding twangy guitar. You get what I mean? I'm really not into it. Here Comes the Cowboy was getting a lot of negative attention when it was released, and I thought, well, where is this coming from? Most of this negative attention isn't about the music, really, and even if it is veiled as a criticism of the music, it's almost always just a criticism of Mac DeMarco as a person. Bringing this up, I'm already in it. I didn't want to talk about it, but I'm already in it. I believe it's called Here Comes the Cowboy. Anyway, when that album, Here Comes the Cowboy, came out, Mitski, an artist that is also kind of in the same genre as Mac DeMarco, kind of like indie girl pop, she released an album called like I'll Be the Cowboy or something like that. I don't really listen to Mitski like that, but similar album title, and they both had the same exact name for the lead single, and it was called Nobody. Because of this funny little incident, people decided to review bomb Mac DeMarco and his album, and it got a lot of negative attention for a really dumb reason. And it's especially made even dumber when Mitski herself came out in an interview and said, I don't think Mac did this on purpose. Me and Mac are friends, we chat with each other. I like his album, he likes my album. I don't think he meant anything by it. I think it's just a friendly little coincidence. I like his album. But I've never seen anyone acknowledge that or forgive Mac DeMarco, and basically it's weird, like not too many people talk about it, but he's kind of like the new Nickelback of our generation, at least when I see like indie music reviewers talking about him. You have acts like Imagine Dragons, Tones and I, hell, Jojo Siwa, plenty of artists where it's easy to actually make fun of them. Mac DeMarco changed things up on Here Comes the Cowboy, but people just made it a personal thing and chose to attack him and his album when it came out. And I see the same thing happening on One Wing G. Now, if you don't want to listen to an album that's like 8 hours to listen to, like I can listen to the whole thing on like a work shift, you know what I mean? If that sounds annoying to you, okay, I understand that. Does that mean the songs are bad? Is it possible that you only find it boring because of its length? You don't need to listen to the whole thing. I did. It took me a long time to listen to the whole thing. I had to do it in sections, in parts. I think I did like 10 songs at a time. Sometimes it was boring, sometimes it wasn't. But for sure, it's very easy to listen to, other than the like one or two ambient songs that are on this album. I think Mac DeMarco gets a lot of undeserved hate. Or maybe he does deserve hate for one reason or another. I wouldn't know that. But I think it's silly to let your personal hatred of someone affect your review of music. That means you're not a good reviewer if you can't separate the art from the artist, and I will die on that hill. You should be able to admit Kanye West or Mac DeMarco or Drake or Kendrick Lamar, anybody that you don't like made a good album, maybe. You know, maybe you genuinely don't think so, but you should at least keep an open mind. I remember 21 Pilots' Trench. Loved that album when it came out. I hate 21 Pilots. Would probably never see them live. But Trench is a good album. Wish more music reviewers could do that. I find it so easy. Maybe I'm just gifted. Maybe I'm just gifted with the ability to just be objective about things at all costs. Most music reviewers, especially the more popular ones, Anthony Fantano, Brad Taste in Music, are not objective. As an example, Fantano refused to review the new Kanye West album, which everybody loved, right? Brad Taste, I used to be an admin in his server, also suffers of the same ailment that Fantano does. Doesn't care that his review looks biased, he's gonna release a biased review. I remember him giving something a negative review and admitting he didn't fucking listen to it in the review. How does that make sense? That's embarrassing. Embarrassing. You think an album that you didn't listen to is bad, or a song, or anything? You're better off saying nothing. You're better off saying nothing. You're just dishonest and lying at that point, okay? So let me finish this up about One Wayne G. It's cute, it's adorable, it's easy to listen to. Get over your hatred of Mac DeMarco, and you will see how easy this album is to enjoy. I think with very little effort, I can make this album my #1 most played album of all time. All I have to do is play some video games, chat with friends, throw it on, and it just blends right into the background. And I could do that for a long time. This is a sleeper album. You probably don't think it's good right away because of its length, because of how much it asks of you. But every song on here pretty much is at least kind of good. It's kind of good. It's hardly any bad songs on here. It's just long. It asks a lot of you. But it's not a movie. You don't need to listen to all of it all at once or even in order. It's just random little snacks. Indie pop little snacks. Whenever you feel like giving that a shot, right? Give it a shot. The next album on my list is from one of my favorite bands of all time. And if you know me, you know that this is one of my favorite bands of all time. The album is called The Silver Chord by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. This album took a little to grow on me. It's very synth heavy, very electronics heavy. And for that reason, less rock and roll than we're used to King Gizzard being. But there's plenty reasons why it's possible to enjoy this. Sorry, there's mosquitoes everywhere. I forgot to put on bug repellent. I'm probably getting bit as we speak. That's why you see me waving my hand around. There's just mosquitoes everywhere, okay? Well, anyway, there's lots of reasons that one could like The Silver Chord. Much like the previous album I just mentioned, One Wayne G. very easy to just throw this on. It's just meant to be casual listening. There are highlights, there are little moments where you can like pay attention to something. Like maybe there's some guitar solos, maybe there's some synth solos. It's been a while since I've actually sat down and listened to this album. There's one thing I like about King Gizzard and their approach to writing music. It's their continuity. It's their willingness to reuse ideas. Now that might come off as lacking creativity, but it kind of works in the opposite direction when King Gizzard does it. King Gizzard is a jam band. They're an improvisational band. They'll turn a 5-minute song into a 20-minute song when they play it live, okay? Once in a while, King Gizzard will use a riff that's from a previous album entirely even. And it's just really cool callback that it's just for the fans. If you're not a huge King Gizzard fan and you don't catch the callback, maybe you don't know all their work like that, you still enjoy it, you know what I mean? It's still good music. But if you are a heavy King Gizzard fan and you do know a lot of their material, when you hear the callbacks, it really makes you feel something. It really just is like, wow, they really did that. They did that for me. They did that for me because they know that I know. You get what I mean? It's really fun. King Gizzard released 2 albums this year. This one, The Silver Chord, and a more progressive metal one. The shortened title of it is Petrodragonic Apocalypse. But The Silver Chord has several callbacks to Petrodragonic Apocalypse. And that makes it kind of fun. You have this like almost Eastern at points sounding electronic album, very progressive, calling back to metal songs that King Gizzard released this year. It works really well, if you ask me. And it's kind of a double feature. It's kind of a double album to a certain degree. What I mean by that is King Gizzard first gives you the songs, about 3 minutes, 4 minutes each, maybe 6 or 7, one in there. And then they give you the same album again, extended. Songs are like 15 minutes, 20 minutes long now. King Gizzard really is all about the fans. They love spoiling their fans. They really do. There's a big King Gizzard bootleg community, and King Gizzard supports it. They don't tell people to not bootleg their music. They love hearing the bootlegs. That furthers their ends. When people bootleg their music and they share their bootlegs with their friends, more people listen to King Gizzard. More people buy their tickets. More people go to their shows. I love King Gizzard. They're one of the best bands in the world. And I think you should listen to them. You should check out their album, The Silver Chord. It's not a very good album to start your King Gizzard journey if you're not already a fan. But it's not a terrible place to start. It's kind of shows you what they're about. I think this album is much more enjoyable if you already are a King Gizzard fan, if you already are kind of familiar with their previous work. This one kind of makes a little bit more sense. But it's not necessary. It's not mandatory. If you don't know King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard and you started with this album, you'd probably just think they're okay, but you wouldn't really be having a great idea of what King Gizzard's all about with this album without knowing what they are about already. So you may come away thinking this album is just okay. And that's how I originally thought about it. But with enough time, and with enough context, this album makes more sense and it's easier to enjoy. Go listen to The Silver Chord. Number 8 on my list. Top 10 albums of 2023. It's gonna be Metallica's 72 Seasons. I won't spend too much time on this album, but this album is just quite good. Metallica, one of the best bands to ever live, still capable of making good music, good albums, even with Lars still in the band. It's just classic Metallica. Not much to really say here. I pretty much like every song on the album. I can understand if you think it's just okay or standard. It is typical Metallica, but hey, they might be a dad rock band at this point in their career, but they're doing it well, okay? Like I said, I pretty much like every song on this album, but the title track, 72 Seasons, probably my favorite one. I learned how to play it on guitar. I learned how to play a few of these songs on guitar. I was planning on doing the whole album, never got around to it, but I did learn like 2 or 3 songs off of this album. And 72 Seasons, just really, really fun to play. You have to kind of, it's got this proggy nature to it. It's all in 4/4, but it's almost like the guitar riff is 2 beats late, but it's like that on purpose. They wrote the song that way, and it's a little weird. Takes you a few listens to kind of understand it, but yeah, during that like really fast, speedy riff, that part like feels weird in relation to the rest of the music, in relation to the drums and the vocals and where it is in the song. They wrote it that way on purpose, and I think it's really neat. It introduces a proggy, edgy element to the music while still feeling like a single, while still feeling like one of Metallica's best songs, actually. I like the whole album, but 72 Seasons is probably my favorite. And Metallica is forever one of the best bands to ever do it. They might be fast, with the down picking, they might be speed metal strumming, but I also think they're not too complex in their songwriting, making Metallica a good band to learn guitar with. If you want to learn some songs on guitar, you're a new guitarist, learn some Metallica songs. It will show you everything you need to know. Number 7 on my list, top 10 albums of 2023 is 93696 by Liturgy. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it's been a hot minute since I've listened to this album, but I really just love everything Liturgy does. They used to call themselves transcendental black metal. They might still use that label, but I just feel like their music transcends really any genre, really. Yeah, I can still see this being transcendental black metal, but Liturgy just keeps pushing the envelope with everything they do. Their music becomes more challenging and more rewarding. I quite like this. Just to put it into perspective for you guys, I would call it an avant-garde metal album. If you want to listen to a metal album, but that's not even close to being your typical metal music, you should check out 93696 by Liturgy. You should check out Liturgy in general. I think all their music is fantastic, but 93696 is just so abstract, so weird, and so cool for that reason. Again, it's been a long time since I've listened to this album. This video is very late, so I couldn't really name you any of my favorite tracks. But really, all Liturgy albums, especially this one, 93696, is meant to be enjoyed as an entire piece. You need to listen to this entire album right away, and check out the rest of Liturgy's music too. Number 6 on my top 10 albums of 2023 is Oh Monolith by Squid. Almost forgot that this album existed. But this album is quite unique. Very unique post-punk vibes. And if I could sell this to you with one sentence, it's this. Hideo Kojima likes this album. He posted it on Twitter. He's got good taste. His favorite band is The Cure. Squid's Oh Monolith is very casual and chill post-punk. It can almost feel like Radiohead at times. But the very almost jammy and casual approach to it, very unique to Squid. If you've listened to Squid before, this album will not catch you by surprise. It's what Squid's already been doing, just advanced to the next level. But I think if you've never listened to Squid before, you can still find something to enjoy here. It's just a pretty good album, okay? Squid is for fans of Viagra Girls, Black Midi, Black Country New Road. You know what I mean. Fans of that kind of thing. It's really chill post-punk, but has this like eerie modernness to it that I can only compare to Radiohead. It's not as, let's say, generic as a Yard Act, which I love Yard Act. You won't see me hating on Yard Act. Yard Act is very simple, very basic. Imagine if Yard Act did LSD. That's kind of the vibe I get from this Squid album. Songwriting's very good. I forget the name of the track right now, but there's like a softer acoustic song that has this like whimsical, theatrical feel to it. This is just a good album in general. I think you should listen to it. Go listen to Squid's Oh Monolith. Number 5 is Petrodragonic Apocalypse by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. The actual title is much longer, but Petrodragonic Apocalypse is the main title. Everybody knows it as the shortened title. It basically has two titles. It's Petrodragonic Apocalypse, or insert the rest of the album in here, and that second half is really long. Anyway, Petrodragonic Apocalypse by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is such a great album. It's a metal album. So it's not, metal isn't something that King Gizzard hasn't done before, but they've never approached it like this. King Gizzard made a progressive metal album that is just so weird, so complicated, very mentally stimulating. They did it again. I did talk about earlier in this video The Silver Chord, which is the other album King Gizzard made in the year 2023. I like Petrodragonic Apocalypse a lot more. I like the songs a lot more. I like the vibe a lot more. But also, listening to this album gives you the context you need to enjoy The Silver Chord to its fullest. You can still enjoy it no matter what. But listening to this album and being familiar with King Gizzard and what they're about helps with that album. In a weird way, even though they're completely different genres, Petrodragonic Apocalypse and The Silver Chord are kind of cousin albums, sister albums. They're related to each other. And you can tell if you listen to both of them. Anyway, this album's got riffs. It even has breakdown parts, plenty of guitar solos, weird time signatures galore. This album would not be as cool if it weren't for the weird progressive time signatures, okay? I listened to this album quite a bit, but it's an album that's easy to revisit just because it's just really good. Very awesome metal album. I think, depending on people like me, people who go and sift through the end of the year lists, right? It is people like me, and I know I sound narcissistic, but I don't want to say people like Fantano or people like Brad Taste in Music, because they do the opposite. They kind of elevate mainstream music and don't care too much about independent music, about the little guy. Not in my estimation, not in my view. If they did, I'd probably watch them more. And if they ever do, I will watch them more. So Brad Taste or Fantano, I doubt you guys will ever see this. But if you happen to, review more weird, indie, unheard of stuff. Like, do some hardcore music, do some jazz music. Don't just do what a album of the year or rate your music is telling you to do. You find it. You know what I mean? Back to this album. The point I was trying to make is, if people like me keep listening to this album and keep showing it to people, I genuinely believe Dragonic Apocalypse could go down as like one of the all-time greatest metal albums. It's just really unique, but really awesome too. If you're a metal fan, it's not hard to enjoy this one at all. Just you will immediately like the vibes. And King Gizzard just keeps it interesting by making it so proggy, so weird, keeps you guessing. I love all of King Gizzard music, really, but I think when they go metal, it goes crazy. They know how to do metal. You would have never thought that with a band named King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Like, I suppose that does kind of sound like an old thrash metal band name, but when you've listened to King Gizzard as long as I have, you start to realize, wow, they really just won't stop, will they? They'll make 3 or 4 or 5 metal albums if they want to. I really wonder what they're gonna do next. King Gizzard just doesn't stop. They're one of the greatest rock bands to ever do it, in my opinion. Dragonic Apocalypse, great metal album from a band that's not even really a metal band, but makes metal music when they feel like making metal music. It's really good. Go listen to it. Number 4 on my list of top 3 greatest albums of 2023. Top 10, I'm sorry. Greatest albums of 2023 is gonna go to Last by Loma Prieta. So this album is a screamo album from one of my all-time favorite screamo bands, okay? Loma Prieta is screamo perfection. You cannot sleep on them. If you've never listened to Loma Prieta, listen to them immediately. I think you can listen to anything of theirs and enjoy it, but you should listen to Last because it's such a great album. It does so much. It's really loud, but it's also really abrasive. And on top of all that, just very good, very well-written songs. If you're into loud, noisy music, you will like this. I just know you will. This album's a bit underrated. Not too many people know about it. Loma Prieta puts on a great live show. I saw them live with State Faults. Really good musicians in both bands. But man, Loma Prieta is something special. They've been doing it for a while now. The members are kind of older, but that feels awesome. Makes me feel like me being 31, I can still make music if I want to. It's not a thing for just young people. The OGs know how to do it too. And if you need proof of that, listen to Last by Loma Prieta. I like pretty much every song on there. It's just crazy how loud and abrasive and dark this can sound, and bright and explosive and maybe even colorful at times. Listen to Last by Loma Prieta. The next album we're talking about on our top 10 albums of 2023, album number 3 is going to be The Beggar by Swans, okay? Swans is not for everyone. Swans is a band that also, much like Loma Prieta, thrives on how loud and abrasive they are. The difference is Loma Prieta is a screamo band and Swans is a post-rock band, industrial band, ambient band. Very weird. You might even call them like abstract avant-garde metal, kind of like Liturgy. But I think that you should listen to The Beggar by Swans to understand it, because there is no describing this. This is an experience. I went to go see Swans live with my friend Moose Monch, and it was a great experience. I had to leave early, unfortunately, but it was still an awesome experience while I was there. The Beggar by Swans, it's got it all. It's got easy to digest short songs. For Swans, a short song's like 4 or 5 minutes, but it also has large, meaty sections that demand about 20 minutes from you. I think there's a 45-minute song on this album. It's essentially a double album. I bought it on vinyl. It actually contains 2 vinyl because it's a double album. It's a big thing, okay? But if you're into avant-garde ambient stuff, you'll like this. I like bands like Godspeed You, Black Emperor, God is an Astronaut, Explosions in the Sky, stuff like that, Mogwai. Stuff that is loud but can still soothe you to sleep. This Will Destroy You, I don't know if I mentioned them. Swans is part of that club. I know it sounds weird. Sigur Rós, Swans is part of that club, but they're doing some crazy weird stuff with it. Michael Gira, very unique artist. He knows what he's doing. He's basically the leader of the band. Do yourself a favor, get into Swans, get into Michael Gira. I think he's somewhat of a controversial person. Had some sort of accusation levied against him a few years ago, if I remember correctly. It didn't seem to stick, but just like Mac DeMarco and just like everyone, once people hear bad news about someone they already don't like, it confirms their biases, and now those people forever don't like them. And so I see a lot of people hating on Swans, hating on Michael Gira. I don't fully understand why, but I also don't care, because I'm just here to talk about music and review music. You shouldn't care either. What do you think about The Beggar by Swans? Number 2 on my list of top 10 albums of 2023 is Life Is But a Dream by Avenged Sevenfold. Avenged Sevenfold is a band that, even though I don't really listen to them as much as I feel like I should, they are kind of one of the most iconic metal bands in existence. Some might find me cringe for this, some might praise me for this. Avenged Sevenfold is up there with the likes of Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer. Trying to think of what other bands. Regardless, it is my humble opinion that even though I don't listen to them that much, Avenged Sevenfold is one of the greats as far as metal bands go. Life Is But a Dream is a bit experimental for them. It's kind of progressive metal, but only in the same way that like Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody is progressive. You get what I mean? it is kind of like Avenged Sevenfold's big rock opera thing, and I love it. I think this is clearly one of the better albums of the year. I think it went over a lot of people's heads. Some people didn't understand this and gave it poor reviews. I could be wrong, but I think Fantano gave this like a not good. Didn't even give it a number. Or if he did, he gave it a poor rating. But this album is not bad. It's a good album. It's a bit of a weird album. Seems to be outside the norm for what Avenged Sevenfold normally does. Good music, good songs, very good songwriting. Supreme songwriting. Modern production with classic songwriting. It really, really goes far. I forget the names of the songs right now, just because I haven't like sat down and studied these albums in a while. But there's a song on here where it's just very grand. And Shadow's voice is really awesome. There you'll find me. That song, really good song. I pretty much like every song. Guitar and drums go crazy in every song. M. Shadows is a marvelous singer. And in a weird way, even though this is kind of like a progressive metal album, your enjoyment of it is kind of like if you were listening to like a St. Vincent or a Vampire Weekend album. There is virtuoso parts where the guitar is going crazy or the drums are going crazy, but you're not listening to it for those reasons. You're listening to it and you feel like, wow, I'm part of the elite. I'm listening to some like really awesome music. I'm probably alone in this, but I'm one of the few cool people listening to this really fancy, esteemed music that makes me feel larger than life. It's hard to explain. Yes, it's a metal album, and yes, it's impressive, but it doesn't give you the feeling of a metal album. It gives you the feeling of like if you're listening to Queen or some kind of greatest pop albums of all time. I hope that makes sense. I'm probably not describing it that well, but Avenged Sevenfold proved to me with this album that they're a great band and they deserve attention. They deserve to be recognized. Life is But a Dream. Very good album with very great songs. Go listen to it. Okay. Finally, my last album. The number one album. The best album of 2023. In oozePOP's humble opinion. You know who I am, you know exactly what I'm gonna say. And if you're not familiar with me, maybe you'll be surprised that this is the number one album. But what I found to be the best album of 2023 was Lana Del Rey's Did You Know That There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard? When I first listened to this album, I could not stop crying. Every single song bringing out major emotions in me, especially the opening track. It's called The Grants. Lana Del Rey's performance is just so soul destroying. It almost feels like I'm listening to La Llorona singing or something. But it destroys your soul, and the lyrical subject matter also will do that. The Grants is definitely my favorite Lana Del Rey song. Beautiful song about how you can't keep anything but someone's memories when they die. And so, just a declaration of, I'm gonna keep those memories with me. I'm gonna keep my memories of you with me. So heartbreaking, so amazing. Just that one song alone, in my opinion, should sell you on the album, sell you onto at least checking it out. But the rest of the album is also pretty good. A&W, I think, is the track that goes, now this is the experience of being an American whore. Then it goes into the Jimmy Jimmy Cocoa Pop, Jimmy Jimmy Ride. It's a depressing album, but it's also kind of a vibey album. I don't know what Lana Del Rey's goal was with this album, but it worked. She succeeded in it. And someone like me who doesn't really listen to this kind of music too often can enjoy this album. Had to buy this album on vinyl. It's one of the greatest things I've ever heard. Beautiful songs, beautiful music, beautiful lyrics. I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. Taylor Swift hasn't really been bringing it like she did with Folklore and Evermore. Those were truly unique albums. Now everything that she's been doing ever since with Jack Antonoff, very basic, very generic, everything about it. The music, the lyrics, everything. I still like it. I still enjoy Taylor Swift's music. But I bring it up because Lana Del Rey is kind of a competitor to Taylor Swift, and in my opinion, does it better. That makes better music. Lana Del Rey also works with Jack Antonoff. And again, when you work with Jack Antonoff, that's how you assure that your music is just very cookie cutter. But even when working with Jack Antonoff, the Lana Del Rey Jack Antonoff songs are better than the Taylor Swift Jack Antonoff songs, in my opinion, for the most part. I mean, but they're also totally different worlds. Lana Del Rey's making like sad piano music, and Taylor Swift makes songs about crying at the gym. This is the greatest album of the year for me, one of the greatest albums I've ever heard in my life. Very important album. Did you know that there's a tunnel under Ocean Boulevard? Lana Del Rey, baby. Go listen to it. And that's gonna wrap up oozePOP's top 10 albums of 2023. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit like, please subscribe, please share this with your friends, and follow me on every other social media that you'd like to keep up with me on. On Twitter, I'm oozePOPTV, at oozePOPTV, but on everything else, I'm just oozePOP. On Twitch, YouTube, Kick, Rumble, Instagram, Tumblr, whatever you can think of, I'm just oozePOP, okay? If you're an album of the year user, I'm not oozePOP on there. My username is unfortunately Anal Vape. Old username that it won't let me change, but I have 500 followers on there now, so why would I abandon everything I've built if only I could just be allowed to change my name on that website? But anyway, I pay to use that website. You don't have to pay, but if you do pay, you get to change your header name, and my header name is my Twitch account. But whatever, that's beside the point. I hope you liked this video. Tell me what some of your favorite albums of 2023 are. Which albums did I miss? Or maybe you disagree with the order I put these albums in. Maybe you like these albums too, but you would have rearranged them. Anything you want to tell me in the comments. Let's have a discussion. I love having genuine discussion in the comments. Very rare on YouTube, but let's make it happen. Thanks for watching.